I feel like I've been MIA for quite some time, and honestly, there's a reason for that. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time seeing me, I do hope you stick around. And for my returning subscribers, thank you for always showing up. Thank you for always hanging out with me. My name is Chamaka. I am a Nigerian girl living in Malta. And I feel like I've been MIA for quite some time, and honestly, there's a reason for that. So I moved apartment, rather. I did not change. I moved apartment, so it's just been a whole lot trying to move stuff around, park, repark, all of that madness, all of that craziness. But yes, I am back. Sadly, I wasn't able to document the entire process of moving from my previous apartment to this new apartment, but I promise I'm going to take you guys on a virtual tour of my present apartment. Guys, on today's episode, or today, because of the whole moving around, I thought it's important to share the lessons and the things I've learned about the rental and housing market in Malta, and I hope that you find them helpful when you start thinking of renting an apartment, or when you're moving to Malta and you decide to rent an apartment. So I did note a couple of things down, and first things first is, one, I would recommend, if you are abroad and you're moving to Malta, I would recommend, it's just my personal opinion, but I do recommend that you get to Malta first before renting an apartment. Hear me out. There's a reason why I say so, right? We all know, or we're familiar with the idea of what I ordered versus what I got exactly, so as to avoid that. One, not just avoiding that, so that you don't get scammed. One, because there are people who are preying on people's desperation of trying to get an apartment in Malta and begin to scam them off their hard-earned money. Now, it's also important to note that the housing market or the rental market in Malta is a fast-paced one. And because it's fast-paced, you have to just be on ground, except you have someone that is going to be checking out this apartment for you, so that you are sure that this is something you like, this is something that's going to suit your needs and purposes, right? And before you pay. Else, you run the risk of getting an apartment that you're not comfortable with eventually in the long run. So it's my recommendation. Of course, it's my personal opinion, but it's a recommendation I will give anyone who asks for my opinion, that it's better you are in Malta, either in a hotel or Airbnb, at least for a week or 2 weeks, so that you can now scout for an apartment that suits your needs and is within your budget. To search for an apartment in Malta, best place to search for is Facebook Marketplace, but also there are also a couple of groups on Facebook, apartments to rent. There's just a lot of them, so you just join those groups and begin to see the apartments that are up for rent. It is also important to note that, if possible, as much as possible, look out for apartments that are direct from owner. Reason is that when they're direct from owner, you don't have to pay agent's fee, so you get to save some money off that. But in a case where it is difficult, it's now beginning to prove difficult, or you do not have the time, right, to do the whole moving around yourself, checking out apartments, then there are renowned real estate agencies that can be of service to you. Those ones, they're registered, they have offices. That way you do not fall victim of scams, right? It's important to note that. So I think so far I've mentioned, right? First is that my recommendation that you get an apartment, and that you rather get a hotel or Airbnb first before you start looking for an apartment to rent. Second is that it is preferable to rent directly from owners than going through an agency. But in the case where you cannot help it, right, it is important that you go through renowned real estate agencies, so that if there's any, you're able to, if there are places where things starts to go wary, right, you are able to hold certain people accountable. But of course, that rarely happens, in my opinion. But it's just better to be on the safe side, right? Now, 3, it's also important to note that seasons, right, play a huge factor in the cost of rental properties here in Malta. Take for instance the peak of summer. It's just almost like it is difficult finding apartments in the peak of summer. The reason being that there are lots of tourists coming into the country at that time, and the law of demand and supply begins to come into play, in the sense that landlords would want to rent out their apartments for shorter time and make lots of money down for you who needs this apartment for a long period. So if it is within your power as much as possible, it is best that you come to Malta, or you start looking towards the winter period, or I think it's autumn, right? Fall. So that's when you start looking. Say it's from November, December-ish, January. If it's within your control, these are the best times to search for apartments. Tourists have all gone back to their respective homes, and it is now us, we that is left. All right, so that's number 3, right? And but not the least is that the location, right? The locations that you're looking at matters. One thing I've come to realize, I've come to understand, I also made the same mistake when I was moving to Malta. I would spend hours and hours looking at the map, trying to like, oh, my office is here, so I should be living somewhere around here, right? Malta is quite small that you can afford to leave the far end of the north and work in the south. Of course, yes, don't crucify me yet. It's going to take you longer time to commute, but it's not doable. But that's just like an extreme case, right? It's important to note that life does not revolve around the central areas. In fact, personally, from my own personal experience, I think that prices of things, groceries, restaurants, generally prices of things are a lot more on the high side when you live within the central area. That's the touristy area, St. Julian's, Slima, Valletta, Cedar, Zira. Things are a lot more expensive in those areas because they has high influx of people. Of course, the law of demand and supply coming into play here. So to get the best value for your money, I would recommend, personally, I would recommend the more places in the south or in the north. In the south, you have Masascala, you have Paula, you have Zaba, those areas. In the south, you have that's in the south. In the north, you have places like Maliha, Bujiba, Kwara, Ja, Ikling, those areas. So I think yes. So these are like the 4 things that I thought to share based on my experience renting an apartment here in Malta. And for places in St. Julian, it's important to note that so places in those central areas at the moment, right, 2-bedroom apartments rents from between 8,100 and 8,500 sometimes, depends. And if it has a sea view, it's more expensive. But towards the north or down south, you can get a 2-bedroom for 600 to, so you also have to factor in those so that you get the best value for your money as well. I do hope that you find this video quite educating and helpful. So till I see you in my next video.